Hi, I'm Sadie Katz, and you are listening to the Don't Go Out There horror podcast.
They've conquered the big screen. Now, get ready for the spin-off sure to send chills down your spine. It's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin in Don't Go Out There, the series.
Welcome back, everybody, to DGOT, the series. We really appreciate y'all listening. We hope y'all have been enjoying these series reviews. I know we have. It's been a lot of fun. Just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on the website. All of our episodes and interviews, if you want to check those out. We've done some incredible interviews in the past. Go check them out there in a specific tab by themselves so you don't have to scroll through hundreds of episodes on Apple or Spotify, etc. We also have our store if you want to grab a shirt, a mouse pad, a hat, all that good stuff. We'd love to see your pictures, rep your favorite podcast. And Shan's Etsy page is also attached if you want to grab a tumbler. All of our social media links are on there as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Like us, subscribe us, follow us, all that good stuff. And the last thing I'm going to shout out on our website is our Patreon. We call it Blood Donors. We have the traditional monthly reoccurring kind. If you want to support us, help us pay the bills, as we say. Or if there's a movie you want us to review, that option is available as well. Just check out our website, don'tgooutthere.com. Also, if you haven't noticed, we've recently joined the Believe Network. So there's some ads on our program now. But if you want ad-free content, go check us out on Blood Donors. The ad-free episodes will be available there. We appreciate your support. And we are continuing on with episodes 7 and 8 of Dahmer. I'll just get my general thoughts. 2 more good episodes. There are some frustrating moments, which I'm sure we'll all talk on. And me and Brian were kind of talking about this earlier off the air, but it's kind of hard to take notes on this show. And like, if you're not doing the scene by scene, because you're kind of just saying the same stuff over and over, like Dahmer is a sicko, blah, 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 stuff like that. But that doesn't detract from the fact that the show is really quality made and the acting is really good. But I'm excited to review these 2 episodes. Brian, you want to go next? General thoughts on 7 and 8?
Sure. I don't really have much, as you kind of spoke on. They were hard to watch, especially episode 8. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't love the way that things were portrayed at the end of that particular episode, but we'll get there. Episode 7 was fine. I'm just kind of ready to get to the end of the case now is all. Not because it's not interesting to watch, but yeah, you mentioned it. When we're trying to do notes on the show, when you're trying to look for things to talk about on here, it's very hard to do this season.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, I really like these 2 episodes. Liked is like's the funny word, right? Because I think from a just like personal viewing experience, I'm interested in this case and these victim stories. It's hard to say I liked it though because of what takes place, right? And so you mentioned it. It's hard to take notes on it because really what we're doing through this episode or these 2 episodes and the next 2, we're covering the case, right? I mean, we're and the trial and the fallout and things like that. I do like that, especially these 2 episodes, we're taking a different perspective from a character. One episode we're seeing basically through Glinda's eyes, and the next we're seeing it through Lionel's, right? So like that's kind of a theme here. So I do like that, but you guys kind of talked about it. A lot of my notes are just, these cops fucking suck. Dahmer is a fucking terrible criminal. Like it's really kind of repetitive, not in a bad way. It's still a good show. I like this show, and I don't necessarily get the controversy because I actually thought, and maybe I don't know if this is what Brian is talking about, but there's a scene in episode 8 that I just think is so fucking powerful that I love. I loved it. It got me emotionally because these are real people and their testimonies that they're portraying. And so I think the episodes back to back, we're kind of even getting away because there's a few episodes in the series where Glinda kind of provides some well-needed levity and not humor is not the right word, but light. Not here. She is a great character, and I think Niecy Nash steals the show like Shawn Michaels in these 2 episodes. I think she's great.
Yeah, two really good episodes. I texted Nico about this after I watched 7. It was good. It just felt a little out of place to me, like chronologically in the season, because like we'd already seen this stuff happen, and then multiple episodes later, we're gonna re-show us some of that, but just add extra pieces and expand on the story. So it seems just out of place. But other than that, it's really good. Episode 8, to me though, was much better, and I may be alone in that. I don't know, but I thought it was a lot better. Episode 8 was fantastic.
Very fair. Dustin, you got the scene by scene for episode 7, correct?
Yeah.
I know I got it for 8. I'm not looking forward to it.
Let's get to it. Episode 7, Cassandra. We open with a scene we've seen before. Tracy escaping down the hallway of Jeffrey's apartment building and his neighbor Glenda retreating to her apartment and locking the door. She walks down the hallway to Jeffrey's door, and she gets spooked by darkness covering light that was shining through the eye hole and runs back home. She picks up the phone, but puts it down when she sees cops outside her window, and then we see Jeff getting arrested, and Glenda berates the cops for ignoring her previous calls and warnings. Masses are gathering in the street outside the building the next day, and Glenda is told she has to evacuate. At the police station, we hear there were remains from 11 victims in the apartment, and Jeff kept his victims' IDs. On a phone call, the police chief tells the mayor about the 2 cops ignoring Glenda's warning when they went back there that one night, and he's upset to find out that she's black. He says to suspend the 2 officers to give the impression that they're doing something about it. We cut to 2 detectives knocking on doors and alerting the families of the victims, including Tony's and Kendrick and Conrad's families. Next, we see Glenda learning that her boss is upset about the interview she gave about the 14-year-old victim in her attempt to stop Jeff, and that her coworkers are upset with her crying at work. Next, we see the Reverend Jesse Jackson in a car, where his aide tells him he's concerned about Jackson getting involved with the Dahmer case. But Jackson tells him if it is their fight, and we see Jackson meeting with the mayor about how black and brown voices are too often ignored. The chief of police says they don't need an outside agitator furthering racial tensions, but Jackson says we're all past that, and it's his duty to help the community heal. They say that they haven't spoken with Glenda yet, so he asks where he can find her. What do you guys think of the open?
Well, I have an interactive portion of mine, so probably don't put your stuff on mute real fast. But like we mentioned last week, Jennifer Lynch is back for this episode to direct. Another great job from her in what I believe would be her last season, if I'm not mistaken. And listen, like I said, I'm just going to ask because, I do research when we review movies. I know people like to hear the fun facts, but this real life true crime stuff is new to me. So I wasn't sure what to do here. So I'm just going to ask y'all on here, and hopefully maybe some of our listeners are in the same boat as me. But so Glenda Cleveland, I remember you, Nico, I think, and Mike talking about in the first episode, her not really living next door in real life. And I thought Mike mentioned that she lived down the hall some.
She lived in an adjacent building.
Okay, yep. That's what I was going to say. I read that I read it was an adjacent apartment building completely. So, but it was Pamela Bass who lived next door. So, First of all, I don't understand why they decided to change all this. And is all of this true with Glenda and Reverend Jackson, or was that really Pamela Bass? We have this entire episode dedicated to Glenda Cleveland, and the whole thing I'm thinking of is this real even at all, or is all this shit made up?
So, what I remember, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe Nico read something else. When it came out, I'm pretty sure I read, yes, Glenda lived in an adjacent building, Pamela Bass was next door. This character of Glenda, from my understanding, is also like an amalgamation of a couple different people as far as the story that she's being given. So when she's talking to Jesse Jackson, I'm just going to assume that maybe Jesse Jackson talked to more than one person, that lived close by that was a black woman. And so, we do see that a little bit when we're telling true stories where they kind of make a character instead of making a bunch of different characters. I mean, James Cameron did that with Titanic where he'd have one person and he's kind of a stand-in for like 5 different people as passengers go. So maybe that's it. That's the only thing I could think of. Other than that, I don't know. I wouldn't know.
The only thing that bothers me about that is, to me, I'm watching this and I'm almost taking all this as fact. Titanic, sure. You knew you were getting a fake story on a real boat. You knew that going in. So I didn't expect every single thing to be historically accurate. When I'm watching this, and especially when you dedicate an entire... So what?
So it's actually pretty accurate, which is crazy. Yeah, I know.
Well,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's hard for me to get emotionally involved with Glenda Cleveland when I know that it's not real, or at least the whole time I'm wondering, like, because Niecy Nash, that's what I was going to say next. She does such a great job of portraying that emotion. I mean, she absolutely killed the emotional display here in this set of scenes. And when she tries to look in Jeff's door and his shadow covered it up, that jump scare, by the way, got me too. But it's that whole first part is Niecy Nash, and she killed it. And so to learn, like, a lot of this is either not true, made up, or whatever, like, it throws me for a loop. So anyway, emotion to me was really the biggest thing about the set of scenes. The emotion from Glenda Cleveland's character, yes, but mostly the emotion that it built up in me when, the families of the victims were shown being notified. These families, they weren't just faceless characters in this. Like, it was ones that we had seen before, and it affected me pretty big time watching it.
Yeah, it makes me angry that this fucking guy got away with this for so long. And not only because people were calling the police, but also he's bad at this. Like, he's actually bad at like covering up his crimes. Like, he should have been caught a long fucking time ago just with the smell alone. People know what rotting flesh smells like. Like, you can disintegrate it into a vat of acid or whatever. Like, that stuff stinks, man. Like, it doesn't, especially since he was eating it, right? Like, so he didn't disintegrate everything. And so that shit stinks. Like, there is no great way to hide that. And he got away with it for way too fucking long. So frustrating. And he let someone escape. Jesus Christ. He really fucking sucks at covering up his crimes. But he got away with it anyway. So you can hear the pain in Glenda's voice, portrayed by Niecy Nash, like we've all kind of given her flowers here. When she's screaming at the police, and rightfully so, you can just tell that, even if that's not, where, the character of Glenda in real life was, whoever was doing that, I mean, we heard a real phone call, to the police by, the character that Niecy Nash was playing in an earlier episode. And so, again, I think great emotion on display there. I'd be so pissed. I said it when we saw it the first time. I'd be so pissed to have to leave my apartment or my home that I pay for because you fuckers are incompetent and can't do your damn jobs. Now we all have to evacuate this place. Fuck you. And also, again, terrible criminal. Why are we keeping everybody's IDs? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that's like the dumbest shit ever. This guy's an idiot. Again, I would fire these two fucking morons of cops. They suck. I would probably hire a whole new police force if I were Milwaukee, to be honest. As many times as they were called about this man and just turned a blind eye, didn't listen to anybody because, of where it came from, right? What neighborhood it came from, what people it came from. All this would be awful. Brian touched on it. Can you imagine? This case is about to blow up. And as you're a parent, you don't know what happened to your son, and your son's name in the eyes of major mainstream press is about to be forgotten because they're not going to know the victims' names. They're only going to know Jeffrey Dahmer, especially nationally. Maybe they were in Milwaukee, sure, but nationally, it's like it's like Ron, right? Nicole and Ron. Hardly anyone remembers Ron. They only talk about OJ killing Nicole, and that's a shame because he butchered, or whoever did it, I guess, before someone argues with me, he butchered them too, right? So again, same thing here. That would just be devastating to hear the news. It affected me as well. Last thing is more flowers for Niecy Nash. I think that she's great here. Just her delivery, her effectiveness to portray whatever character this is, I think is just really makes this set of scenes and this episode.
Yeah, before I get into my notes, I'll just touch on your question, Brian. Like, I don't know, like, if Glenda Cleveland or Pamela Bass or whoever met with Jesse Jackson. Like, I know Jesse Jackson appeared in Milwaukee, but me and Mike have mentioned Murder in America several times on the show, like for true crime, and they go into great detail on like these cases. And I don't remember them talking about like neighbors meeting with Jesse Jackson. It's a lot, like, this is a lot of dramatizations for the show, I think, because the scene where the HR lady meets with Glenda Cleveland's not real either. Like, that's just all dramatization for the TV series. But I'll get into my notes now. Great facial acting and reaction by Niecy hearing Tracy running out of Jeff's room and seeing the monster Dahmer. Flabbergasted, her character decides to exit her apartment and go to Jeff's house. This has to be an artistic liberty by the showmakers for added tension. Like I don't buy that happening either. I love the cuts between Glenda snapping on the police and the evidence found in the apartment. It's truly haunting. Seriously though, imagine being this neighbor and hearing what was found in the apartment literally right next to your home. This police chief is about to be in hot water hearing how bad his officers messed this whole case up. This scene where the two detectives tell the families of their dead family members is heartbreaking and infuriating. Connor Ack's family should have gone even further, calling out their incompetence. This scene with Glenda Cleveland, like I just mentioned, at work isn't accurate based on the historical evidence. She wasn't, like we've already said as well, she wasn't even Jeff's real true neighbor. So this is good TV, but it's not 100% true. Good on Jesse Jackson holding this police agency accountable. This is the last thing I got. I just thought it was a powerful set of scenes. Not 100% accurate, but it was well acted and well made, and it made you feel things.
And I don't mind with stuff being not 100% accurate. It sucks that we spend an entire episode on Glenda Cleveland, and it kind of seems like the whole thing was kind of bullshit filler, if we're being honest, to get to 10 episodes. If that's the case, I don't know. Anyway.
So I checked ChatGPT just for, some clarification. I hate using AI, but sometimes it's useful. And they cited multiple sources, including, people.com. But Jesse Jackson did apparently meet with Glenda Cleveland and talk to her about her experience and everything. But as for all of the details that we see on this episode, I'm sure there's a lot of liberties taken. But anyway, here we go. Reverend Jackson knocks on Glenda's door, and she's shocked to see him. He gets to know her better, and she's upset that the cops still hadn't spoken with her. She tells him more about what happened after the Conarac incident and says Jeff really got weird after that. We see her knock on Jeff's door and complain about the smell, and he blames it on bad meat again. We then see a new neighbor, Dean, help Glenda take her groceries in, and she warns him about the sketchy people in the neighborhood. And she hears Jeff introduce himself to Dean with a look of concern. Then at night, she sees Jeff slamming boxes into the dumpster outside her window. Jeff goes to Dean's apartment and invites him out, and Glenda sees them return together, and then hears a struggle in the middle of the night. She calls the landlord and then the cops, but they're dismissive. She sees Dean's mailbox overflowing with mail, so she gets the building manager, and there's no answer at Dean's door. She shows the manager the smell coming from Jeff's apartment, so he finally goes to evict Jeff. Jeff is wasted and reveals he lost another job. Surprising. Doesn't matter, though. He's got 30 days to get out. And the next set of scenes is the ending.
Yeah, I don't have a lot on this, just a heads up. One standout shot to me from Lynch was when Jeff showed up to Dean's apartment, and when Dean said he would get his keys and shit, around the 22:58 mark, I believe, on Netflix, the camera blurs to focus on their conversation and then refocuses on the Frankenstein model before the cut. The way Lynch shot that scene, like almost from like sitting on the table with the Frankenstein model, I loved it. I thought that was very standout to me. Then hearing Dean say, no, from Glenda's point of view, like true or not, it made from some good television because like we've talked about before, your mind creates what's going on over there based on what we've already seen from Jeff. And, it's unnerving. It's a good word for that.
Sorry. Yeah, I actually agree with the Reverend here, man. Like, I think in reality, this is their fight. Pretty much every victim, minus like one or two, were black. And I think that creates, if you're not willing to stand up for all black people, especially victims, then you would have a problem on your hands that's bigger than standing up for them in the first place. So I think that Reverend Jesse Jackson was correct here. Your cops should have rocks thrown at them, Chief. You guys fucking suck. The whole department. Fire the lot of you. I don't care. I do understand why bringing in someone famous would complicate these things, but again, in real life, these officers don't deserve that grace, in my opinion. They lost that right to do their quote unquote investigation a long time ago because what typically would happen, and as we see at the end of episode 8, they will try to sweep it all under the rug. And sometimes the only way to fix it is to bring media attention to it. That's the only way that shit gets done around here sometimes is to blow the lid off of it. Again, I love that this episode, even though it's post people finding out about Jeff, that it's a Glinda episode. And I know we've kind of gone back and forth on if we like that, if we don't like that, but I like that we're getting to see the like neighborhood or the complex. I know she didn't live in that building, but we're getting that story through the eyes of someone that lived there. You're getting to see some different characters. The guy that Jeff brings in, whose name is slipping me, he even, by the way, the term brewskis is one I will never use again. Not that I was using it anyway, but I will never use it unironically ever again. Or, sorry. He's.
What did Teddy do? Nothing. Nothing.
Okay,
Absolutely
when I'm
nothing.
talking about Teddy Bruschi, sure, fine. Not that I bring up fucking Patriots linebacker very much, but anyway, great linebacker, by the way. Played at Arizona, right? Right, Arizona? I don't know. I'm testing my knowledge live. I don't want to do that. I love that the cop responds, "What do you want us to do?" Your job. Fucking hell. Finally, someone. Jesus Christ. These cops are just some of the worst fucking people, man. I hate them. Again, I repeat that a lot because hard to take notes on. All I see is terrible police work. Somebody get Deputy Dewey in here, man.
Our weird nitpick, but the reflection from the sun through the blinds on Glenda's sunglasses or glasses, it really annoyed me for some reason, and it distracted me. But I know that's a really weird nitpick, but I did notice it. Glenda Cleveland was, I'm just putting this out there just for context. Glenda Cleveland was not there the night Conorak was found by the police. Her daughter and niece was, but she was alerted of the situation and made multiple calls to police that were ignored. Landlords must not have given a damn back then. Ridiculous how the apartment complex didn't intervene doing an inspection sooner either. Multiple complaints and nothing. The city of Milwaukee is just full of negligence everywhere. Like, what is going on? I shouldn't have laughed, but Evan yelling, "Fuck!" hearing he's evicted, that made me chuckle. Great acting by Evan, like always, but the way he says things in this is just hilarious. This is the last thing I got. I didn't have that much either. The landlord should have been looking out for Glenda as soon as Jeff asked. Like, that could have gotten violent. Like, the landlord should have watched Glenda go into her apartment before he just walked out. That's the last thing I got there. Go ahead, Dustin.
All right, here's the ending. Jeff goes to Glenda's to apologize, but she says it's too late. She lets him in so he can see if it still stinks in there, and he gives her a gift. It's a sandwich. Yeah, no shot I'd eat that. She says she'll eat it later, but he insists she eat it now. Even more reason not to eat it. He won't tell her what kind of meat it is and says it's like a pulled pork. She does refuse to eat it, thankfully. He tries to get her to take back the complaint, but she refuses. He explains to Power Tools as he was building something, the screams as his nightmares, and denies everything. She says if Jeff tells her where Dean is, she'll take back the complaint, but he says he doesn't know. He continues to urge her to eat the sandwich, but she refuses and tells him to leave. The tension is broken up by someone talking in the hallway, so Jeff leaves, potentially saving Glenda. That night, she sees Jeff bring another man home and hears a brutal struggle through her vent. She calls 911, but they don't show much concern once again, and she hears power tools and grotesque sounds throughout the night. We cut back to Glenda talking with Reverend Jackson, and he tells her the 2 officers who ignored her are being suspended. It's the first step of holding people accountable. The end.
Yeah, and just to kind of go back on the last set of scenes real fast, I know it's like a broken record, but Evan Peters and his acting, Nico brought up him saying, fuck, but it's just his whole acting drunk, period, when he's getting evicted. Man, it's so believable. He does such a great job there. And I laughed my ass off when I'm not eating a sandwich that my neighbor made when his apartment's been smelling like a dead raccoon's ass. I laughed my ass off. But aside from that, tension was really well done there. It was thick in that air right there. Great job from all involved there. There is a goof here when Jeffrey Dahmer is leaving Glenda Cleveland's apartment around the 36-minute mark. A camera and the hand of its operator are actually visible reflecting in Glenda's glasses. So, I don't know, just such frustration in this episode. How many lives could have been saved? Like Mike's mentioned a million times on here, just such frustration with the police.
Yeah, I've never been happy to see anyone get evicted in my life until this. Fuck that guy. He should be on the streets, in prison, under the prison, wherever. Anywhere but around people. I'm not going to lie. Let's break this down. If I'm Glenda, probably wouldn't let him in my door to start with. But I feel like maybe she felt like she had to, or something bad could happen. And once I let him in, I probably would have killed this motherfucker, or tried to, and let the chips fall where they may. Because this motherfucker deserves death. Big time. I love the line about the dead raccoon's ass too. That shit had me cracking up, especially in a dark conversation where you kind of knew where this was going. This sandwich thing is eerie. This to me, this was an important scene because it does show that Dahmer is not only sick for the sexual reasons and the perversions that he has, but he is clearly willing to kill her and have nothing or make her feel uncomfortable, fuck with her psychologically at the very least. So we do know he's of sound mind. So I think this is just going to reinforce some of that. And this, his thought process is, I've made you a sandwich. Isn't that enough to change your mind, man? Fuck your sandwich. No chance I'd eat that. That probably has the guy that you had over there the other day in it. No fucking thank you. And again, just legitimately me speaking here, I would have tried to kill this motherfucker if he entered my apartment and sat down in a chair. But I know she wasn't in the same position. Especially again, great scene, great intensity with Evan and Niecy Nash, where he's trying to get her to eat the sandwich and she won't. And she tells him to leave. Thought it was great. And I don't think any of these police, maybe Nico remembers, because I have listened to the Murder in America on Dahmer, but I don't think a ton of them get fired at all, actually. And honestly, not only should they have been fired, some of them should have served prison time for their negligence, especially with the 14-year-old that Dahmer had there. I think that kind of deserves prison time, in my opinion. That's not a mistake. That's lack of doing your job. So I just feel bad for Glenda here. Great scene. Great. Great is not the right word, but it is really compelling television, in my opinion.
Yeah, Mike, you weren't on for this episode, but one of those two cops from Conorak's night actually got promoted later in the future.
That's right.
So,
That's right. Fuck.
So yeah, not much happened to him, but hopefully he serves karma in hell. But anywho, no way in hell if I'm Glenda, I'd open the door for Jeffrey Dahmer. No. After all the things I've heard from that room, nah. The cleaning crew shtick is a dramatization as well. There's no evidence Jeffrey hired a cleaning crew to clean his apartment. He always sanitized everything himself. A crew would have found all the evidence of him being a killer. I don't know why they even included that scene. I mean, I get it. You're trying to clean up, but I don't think that was done well. I'm assuming this scene with Dahmer giving Glenda this sandwich is a dramatization as well to spook and disgust the audience. It's great acting between the two, and it is tense. I'll credit the creators for that, but I don't think this is real either. Love that Glenda stood on business with Conorak and not eating the sandwich. We know in this scene is most likely some type of human flesh. Great acting by both in this very intense scene. The facial acting by Peters is truly haunting. The type of stare he gives Glenda, then smiles saying, okay, and walking out. I thought it was haunting. In this scene with Glenda hearing the screaming and commotion next door, how aren't other neighbors hearing this as well? And I'm not blaming the neighbors, but, just after you hear these kind of things, form a coalition, just attack, and I'm not victim blaming, it's just, I don't know, I would be very suspicious at this point. It's infuriating hearing this call. Emergency management, dispatch, the Milwaukee Police Department, heck, the apartment complex, the judge from earlier, they're all liable in this horrific case. I agree, all these people should be held accountable. Powerful episode as it ends. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I'll just give my my closing thoughts since I did the scene by scene there. I thought this was a really good episode, but like I said, it seems kind of out of place. The nonlinear storytelling has been fantastic this far, but rehashing something that we've already seen and just adding a few extra details felt like some filler, especially when, like you guys have touched on, we don't know how much of it is actually factual. But like I said, it's really well done, so I did give the episode an 8.
Ryan Murphy and the team should have put out a disclaimer there are some dramatizations, not everything's 100% accurate. I feel like that would maybe have eased some of the criticism as well, because this show got a lot of criticism upon its release for all the inaccuracies and was this even deserved to be made. So I feel like they put that out that might have eased it a little bit. But any final thoughts before you jump into the next episode?
I mean, it's kind of like the Iron Claw. I mean, they wrote out an entire brother in that movie. So I think anytime that you see a movie or show based on facts, they're gonna put their spin on it, as unfair to the actual stories that may be.
Not as meaningful, right? Because we're not talking about a serial killer with victims. But guys, I got news for you. TC Williams beat everybody's motherfucking ass by 40 fucking points that season that they won the state championship in Virginia. Wasn't even close. None of the games.
That movie
So there you
is
go.
incredibly inaccurate.
Yes,
Remember the
very
Titans.
much so. Very much so.
That's a prime example of don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, because that story, that movie's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the Iron Claw at least had like the Von Erichs involved. Like this, they didn't consult the victims' families for this show at all. So they just said, "Fuck it, we're making a TV program." But anywho, I know where you're coming from. All right, episode 8, Lionel. The episode starts with Lionel crying after hearing from the detectives. After collecting himself, he asks to see Jeff, who was brought to him in cuffs. He gives him an "I'm disappointed in you" hug as Jeff apologizing, knowing he's cooked. He asks about Grandma and if he fixed the AC while Lionel was speechless. "I didn't realize how sick you were. You need help," Lionel says. He thinks Jeff can still be treated and wonders how all this happened. He asks Jeff what we're all wondering. Why? "I don't know." Lionel breaks down. "I didn't raise you like this. Don't put this on me." The press hound dogs Miss Dahmer and she snaps, "My name is not Dahmer," as she makes it inside the office. She meets with Isaac Richards and reveals to him he doesn't have HIV. He breaks down relieved. But he's caught off guard seeing Joyce crying, and she says she's happy he doesn't have to give her mother bad news. And I ain't gonna lie, that line kind of hit me. The worst person ever, Molly Ringwald, and if you don't know the context, I met her at a convention, and she was terrible. The worst person ever, Molly Ringwald, asked Lionel what he's doing still in the chair. She tells him this isn't healthy, and he needs to go see a doctor. 5 nights of no sleep isn't healthy. Lionel doesn't want more pills and basically blames Joyce for Jeff's behavior from all the pills she took and being a bad mother. He continues to blame her, but Sherry calls him out for not being there for Jeff either. Lionel weeps again, admitting he didn't check on him and he has his genes. He admits he had similar thoughts, revealing he took a homemade bomb to school. He thinks he had fantasies like Jeff trying to hypnotize a girl when he was younger to do whatever he wanted. He also thought of killing someone while in church. Sherry says, "But you didn't," and tries to comfort him and reassure him. He kisses her hand and thankful for her reassurance. The press is outside Grandma's house and Lionel storms into the home. Grandma continues to suffer from her dementia as she yells for Jeff as the police investigate. The two play cards as we hear Jesse Jackson speak. He leads a gathering and speaks to them on the situation. He calls out the police force but supports the police chief, who assures him he's doing a thorough investigation. Jesse says words aren't all he's after. He wants action. He says they will not rest until action is taken as the congregation claps in support. Brian, that's the opening set of scenes. What'd you think?
Hold on. Before you go, Brian, I just want to point out the fact that in an episode where we're discussing a show about Jeffrey Dahmer, Nico says that Molly Ringwald is the worst person ever. Go ahead.
That I've met at a convention. I've met at a convention. I said it in context.
No, but then you followed it up by saying the worst person ever. So who really hates women?
I don't like Molly Ringwald.
She's pretty in pink.
Regislow's a good movie.
Jesus.
Ooh, I'm throwing the 8-ball at you for that, Dustin. That's rough.
Well, I'm glad y'all brought something up because I don't have hardly any freaking notes on this episode whatsoever. It's just an insanely impressive amount of jackasses in this family. It's incredible. Like this, they're all fucked up. Joyce makes me want to punch babies, and Richard freaking Jenkins, man, like at the beginning of the set of scenes, I'm like, God dang, how he's crying. It's just such a tough scene to watch, especially with Jeff. I think Jenkins is just so phenomenal. And then, again, we've talked about this before, bearing the responsibility, the weight of your son's actions as a father. It's such a hard thing to be presented with, something I hope that I'm never in that position to be with. But then Jenkins just fucking loses me, man. He's just... Or not Jenkins, I'm sorry. Lionel loses me. Jenkins does fantastic. Lionel just... It's unbelievable. I mean... And can somebody tell me why this old woman has dementia and she's living by herself in her house by herself with an upstairs and a downstairs? I don't know. That seems dangerous to me. But hey, again, in a show like Justin mentioned about Dahmer, maybe the lady with dementia living by herself isn't that a big of a deal.
Yeah, so Lionel here, much calmer than I would have been. And I know he breaks down crying, but I would have been... I'll be honest, I'm not so sure I could have met with my son. It's still your son, and you got to kind of walk that balance, right? But I would have had a really difficult time here. And I just can't imagine having this conversation so calm, so naturally. I don't know, super interesting, I guess. And I'm uncomfortable watching it because you feel like you're in the room with them. Just not my favorite thing. And Jeffrey doesn't blame his dad, but kind of throws a little shade on him here when he asks why or how, or he throws a little shame, and that makes Lionel freak out. And I think Jenkins is great in the scene, like you mentioned, Brian, where kind of loses it and then is able to compose himself a little bit. But when it comes to Lionel and Joyce, I call, and obviously this happened before Columbine. I want to be clear, but I almost call this the Columbine conundrum, because when you hear Sue Klebold's story, you feel fucking awful for her. And then you can also understand a victim's perspective of wanting someone to be held accountable for this person's actions. The difference is Jeffrey Dahmer's still alive, but we are berating these two parents because we're always going to wonder why, how, right? And so a little bit of the same thing here. We have this conversation with Lionel and Nico's worst person ever, Molly Ringwald. But and this is fine, but I've already talked about this. I don't put a whole lot of blame on Lionel in the same way I don't put a whole lot of blame on Joyce. It is a nasty cocktail of almost everything going wrong that could have gone wrong. And it's really no one's fault per se. It just happened. I mean, it just ended up being, if you want to go nature versus nurture, I would say that nature won out, to be honest, in a bad way here. But that's just my opinion. It doesn't make me correct. I will say, I said it off air. Can't imagine being Dahmer's fucking brother. That's really, man, what kind of job are you going to hold down? What are you going to do? You have to change your name. There's no other way around it. I will say, poor grandma here, man. I talked about it last time I was on. Just breaks my heart. This old woman doesn't know what's going on. She's so confused. Has all these police in her house. Just awful. So fucking sad, man. Last day, glad Jesse Jackson called out these fucking cops, these failures of people, pieces of shit. Anyway, sorry, that's all I had.
Yeah, picking up where Lionel had just learned the horrors was very effective. I know what I said about the last episode filling out of place. This one didn't, because it's kind of where we are in the story. So I don't know if that makes sense, but this one just felt like it was better placed. Lionel hugging Jeff when he saw him, that was unexpected to me. But let me tell you a secret about a father's love. It's a love without end, amen. But, I couldn't do that. I don't know that I could hug my son after knowing the horrors that he had done. He's clearly delusional, though, because he said, quote, "I didn't raise you to be like this." Pal, you barely raised him from what we've seen. And then he said, "I was a good dad to you." Well, you sure about that? I don't know. I was glad that Sherry showed him the mirror, though, and said, "Where were you that summer, Lionel?" Yeah, get him. Heartbreaking stuff when the cops were overrunning Grandma's house, and we find out, she's got dementia, and she doesn't even know what's going on. She thinks that Jeff's in his room asleep. This was just a really solid opening to the episode that was carried by Richard Jenkins being great.
Yeah, Richard Jenkins is so good. He doesn't get enough credit for this show. The two dipshit cops are pissed at the chief for being suspended, saying they did nothing wrong. The chief lays into them for their multiple examples of ineptitude. The two officers get off easy with paid leave for the rest of the investigation. They say their union officer will get them out of this as they leave. Lionel and Sherry watch Tracy Edwards and an anonymous friend of Jeff's on Geraldo. Lionel snaps, saying Jeff wasn't on yearbook staff, and hearing lies about Sherry and Lionel's treatment of Jeff. Lionel is befuddled, not knowing what to do to clean the lies up. Lionel shows Jeff he's on the cover of Newsweek magazine. Jeff asks to take the magazine, but is denied access. Lionel says it's not good what the articles say. You're the Milwaukee cannibal. People want you dead. I want that too, Jeff says. He's informed Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty, and being in jail isn't good for him. They want to convince Jeff and the judge he's insane. Jeff said it wasn't crazy, it was a compulsion. The attorney tells him of Ed Gein, and we see a dramatization of what happened. Lionel keeps pitching Jeff on being insane because of the similarities to he and Ed Gein. Jeff mulls it over, saying he read about him. The lawyer and Lionel exit infuriated about the comic book, but lawyer brings him back to reality. We lean into the insanity. We're in court, and the judge says Jeffrey was not insane and of sound mind. The victim's family will be assured he's going to prison. Court is adjourned, and the families will be able to confront Jeff on Monday. Lionel sees Joyce leave and follows her. The two start arguing after Lionel blames her and asks if she's seen the things being said about him. Sherry tries to calm the situation as Lionel asks if she's still on the pills and causes a scene. He calms down as Sherry hugs him. That's the next set of scenes. Next is the ending. Go ahead.
Man, these two fucking cops have some kind of nerve. Which, oh, by the way, Dustin, when you did your scene by scene for episode 7, I really meant to give you a round of applause on your knocking on Glenda's door, because then I just wanted to do the Axl Rose knocking on Glenda's door, that whole thing. Anyway, sorry, I thought that was good. And then Nico, this was you, two dipshit cops. You're fucking right, buddy. These fucking maroons, God, these two don't deserve to stay on the force. They deserve prison, man. And here you are getting mad about getting put on paid leave. Paid? You're going to pay these two? Fuck, man. Just, so frustrating to see all of this unfold. Unbelievable. And honestly, I don't know if I were Lionel, if I could watch this stuff, right? Like, I would have to turn off the TV. You know, I've listened to Nancy Benoit's sister talk about how the family just had to turn the TV off because so much inaccuracy, so much stuff was getting to them. They just could not watch TV for like 6 months. They had to turn it off because Nancy Grace and all those people were saying lies about their family and their nephew every day. And so same thing here. Like, if you're going to sit there and watch all this, people are going to come out of the woodwork and make up a bunch of shit. So I don't think I could watch this if I were Lionel. But as we kind of know, if I am going to be critical of Lionel, he's a little bit of a narcissist, I think, honestly. He's kind of spent a lot of this episode trying to make whatever about him somehow. Anyway, I would be pissed if someone went out there and made up a bunch of molestation shit about me, though. That would really fucking piss me off. I completely understand that. Now, listen, let's preface. Jeffrey Dahmer doesn't deserve credit for anything except being a piece of shit. But good on him not wanting to take the easy way out and cry insanity. He knew what he was doing. He owned up to it. He knows he's sick, but he also knows that he's not the kind of sick that gets stuff thrown out. He doesn't belong in a mental institution. He belongs in prison, and he actually deserves to be dead. Clear as day. And I will say a little bit of bother, like this Ed Gein dramatization backstory stuff, I could have done without. I think just referencing Ed Gein in his case would have been enough. If you don't know who Ed Gein is and you're watching this show, I guess that's something you could go look up. But I don't know. That felt like a waste of about 4 minutes of my time. And again, I'm glad that the courts didn't let him off with his bullshit pleas of insanity. I thought that was one of the easiest determinations ever. And finally, these families are going to get the only form of justice that they can get. Last thing, I really like this Lionel Joyce interaction because I think that the actors do a great job portraying it. There's a lot of blame to go around. You're both to blame. You're also not to blame. A lot of stuff to dive into. Too nuanced, too complicated for my pea-sized brain. But I thought the scene itself was great.
Yeah, paid leave of absence. The more things change, the more they stay the same. We see it every day to this day. Cops do something crazy and paid leave of absence. Crazy how fast false narratives spread even back then. Like the childhood friend spreading lies on the Geraldo Rivera show. That's wild. And Lionel couldn't even refute it before it got out to the masses. Social media didn't even exist. Like, that's crazy. The attorney bringing up Ed Gein, yeah, that didn't happen. I was curious, so I looked into it, and there's no evidence that he was ever referenced to Jeffrey. For that reason, I hate that inclusion. It's the definition of fluff and filler to me. Coincidentally, though, Gein is the subject matter of season 3 of this series on Netflix, which has a different actor playing him than we saw here in this episode. Pretty tense confrontation between Lionel and Joyce. They want to blame each other, but like I've said, even though they weren't the best parents, the blame lies squarely on Jeff's shoulders. Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv could have raised him, and it wouldn't have mattered. He was a bad egg, but I'm ready for the ending.
Yep, and here we go. Joyce rips a cig as she knocks on Miss Strotter's door. She asks if her daughter is home, and she apologizes to her for what her son did to her grandson, Curtis. She asks why she's here, and Joyce asks if she'd be willing to say something on behalf of Jeff so he can go to a mental facility and not prison. Miss Strotter grows angered but understands Joyce. She says it's time for you to hear someone else's truth. Back in court, and Conorac's father speaks first. Shirley Hughes goes next, speaking to Dahmer on the hurt he's caused the family. She reads a poem written by Tony's friend. The court is moved hearing it as the next speakers tell Jeff how devastated they are and for the judge not to let him free. The most famous speaker of the Dahmer case approaches, Rita Isbell, the oldest sister of Errol Lindsay. She snaps on Jeffrey. I hate you, Jeffrey. She's contained by bailiffs as she charges him. Jeff reads a statement to the court now. He says it's over. I'm not trying to get free. I want death for myself. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. He admits he's sick and knows the harm he's caused. He tried to identify the remains and says he feels bad for what he did as we zoom in on Lionel, who is breaking down and spacing out. Jeffrey was sentenced to 15 life sentences as court releases. Glenda says to her daughter, we got that bastard. He ain't never getting out. Lionel hugs Jeffrey and says he's got something to tell him. Lionel says, I'm the one to blame. He hushes Sherry and Jeff, the dissecting, the fantasies, not being able to tell me about them. I gave you that part of me, he says as he cries. I didn't help you enough when you needed it. I wasn't a good father or husband. He hugs him one last time as Jeff is taken away. Joyce pens a letter as we see her make coffee and remove the gas line from her stove. I failed you, Jeff, for not being the mother you needed. She asked her son David to forgive her. We see her fading and the camera blurs. Sherry enters the room as Lionel is typing his book. He stalls her, but she tells him Joyce tried to kill herself. Lionel says he'll call David and goes back to typing. I guess he didn't care too much. The police clap as the two shit cops return to the force. Jesse gets a call from the mayor hearing the news. They're going to appeal the decision, but if it fails, we fight the next fight and the next. And that's the ending. Brian, what'd you think?
I wish Joyce would have finished the job. I'll tell you that first. Wow. But first of all, her visiting Curtis's grandmother, I think, is cringeworthy. And then listening to the victims' families was a hard part of this episode to watch. Technically, the camera, the sound fading away while we focused on Lionel as Jeff read his statement in front of the court, I thought was probably the most impactful use of the camera that I can remember in this series besides episode 2 when he was first being arrested. And okay, so this is what made me frustrated with this episode. Listen, I understand Lionel saying what he did with Jeff. As a father, I do. But I did not love how the show portrayed it here. This, to me, is the first time with the show that I felt like it was kind of trying to push the responsibility on Lionel. And I don't know what was real and what wasn't real, but in these 2 episodes, we've talked a lot about the liberties that the show took. So the fact that Lionel's trying to take responsibility, just have Jeffrey say something like, "No, Dad, it's my fault. I'm responsible." Like, whether that's real or not, I mean, that to me is all the show needed or this episode needed to not do that. Otherwise, I feel like that this was a major reason on probably why people thought that may have been the angle that the show was trying to push, because they didn't do anything to refute it. If this is the writers' voices, that's what they were pushing, that it's Lionel's fault because nothing was there to refute it. And I didn't like that at all. It's the first thing in the show where I was like, no, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, look, thank God this woman didn't buy Joyce's bullshit. I could tell that this woman had a little bit of empathy for Joyce, honestly, but wasn't going to let Jeffrey have a get out of jail free card there. I can understand her as a mom trying, but I think there does come a point where you have to accept the actions of what he did and not move on, but kind of figure out where to go from there. I think asking someone this favor, for lack of a better word, shows kind of poor taste, honestly, without really having any other words to describe it. And I love, and I do mean love, but I also hate because it had to happen. I hate the fact that it happened. But as far as the show, this witness testimony and statement scene is fantastic. It is powerful. And really, for the first time that I'm aware of, and Murder in America definitely also does this, as Nico's touched on, gives his victims a voice. Because up until the last 5 years, 6 years, they haven't had one. I did not know. And I've watched the Dahmer tapes, the thing that Netflix did. They don't talk really about his victims a ton in there, except when he's talking about them. So these are nameless, faceless people to a lot of people that are even obsessed with this case. This show and podcasts like Murder America do a good job portraying the victims and their stories and what they went through, making it seem horrific, but also letting us know who these people were and giving these families a chance to kind of stand up and say what they wanted to say. I thought was really powerful and honestly moved me. I teared up a little bit. I forgot about it, honestly, and when it came, I was like, man, I was so invested in the story.
I agree with you to an extent, but there were a lot of victims they chose not to. I mean, you weren't on a couple of episodes ago whenever I was talking about the murder montage that they had, where it was just like flash murder. And they picked, I wonder how they decided to pick the 2 or 3 or 4 that they did highlight.
I just think they picked the 4 most recognizable ones. Like the first 2, the 2 Stevens, that was the first 2, I believe. Tony Hughes, he was disabled, was deaf, so you can pull on some empathy, some sympathy strings with that. And Conrack was 14. Conrack was 14, and it has the police ineptness. So I feel like they just picked the 4 most recognizable ones and just I don't want to say hammed it up, but you know what I'm getting at.
But they did to an extent. But
they deep dived on it.
Really like that scene. Again, I thought it was powerful. And then the "I hate you, motherfucker." I thought that was great. I've seen the real footage of that as well, so I thought recreating that was definitely necessary to the story of the show. We've talked about it a ton. We've kind of beat the dead horse. You can do whatever great parenting you try to do, whatever bad parenting you try to do. Sometimes you just get the shit end of the stick. And Lionel and Joyce did. This is one of the worst people of all time, and he's your son. It's not completely your fault. I don't think this big revelation, which Brian kind of touched on, was necessary, honestly. I just not the conclusion I would come to. But, some acknowledgement of I probably could have done better. I don't know what more you could have done. Like Dustin mentioned, he was a bad egg. So I will say when Lionel's writing his book on the typewriter, that little nod from Sherry when he's not really moved much that Joyce tried to kill herself, I thought was interesting. It's almost like a recognition of maybe this is in Jeffrey's genes from both sides. Anyway, I just hate that this episode ends on those cops getting to celebrate their fucking return to work. Just, oh, God, so fucking frustrating. Fucking assholes. Okay, I'm done.
I mean, we see that every day. Every day it happens. They let the one bad apple back on the force every day. Anyway, Mrs. Straughter should have slammed the door in Joyce's face. Get out of here. The nerve to ask her to help Jeff. No. Very powerful and gut-wrenching stuff. Hearing the families of the victims give statements in court. Jeffrey's statement just pissed me off, though, even more. Like, I wanted death for myself. If he would have killed himself instead of the 17 victims, the world would have been a much better place. I do like the sound design when he's talking and the camera focuses on Lionel. Jeff's voice fades out, and it's a great representation of how it feels when you're drowning in guilt, anxiety, and shock. He finally says the quiet part out loud when he tells Jeff he wasn't a good father. Very good stuff, again, from Richard Jenkins. I mean, he's the star of the series. The cops being reinstated, again, I've already said it, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. Complete lack of accountability. This was a really powerful episode, and we're moving forward to the conclusion of the gruesome story. I give this episode a 9.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Peters and Niecy Nash get a lot of the credit, but, man, Richard Jenkins has been standing out a lot. He's really good in this. Man has range, too. Like, he's impressive. Guys, any final thoughts on these 2 episodes before we get out of here?
I just got one little fun goof here for this episode 8. In this episode, supposedly Jeffrey Dahmer is seen wearing glasses while the victims' families were given statements in court. But in real life, he was not wearing them, allegedly, because he didn't want to see their faces.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, too. You can watch a lot of these courtroom scenes on YouTube if you wanted to, and he's definitely not wearing glasses in court. So that's an easy fix. Like, you just don't put the glasses on, like, right?
Right.
I think
Artistic liberty.
I wonder if the reasoning was that he looks more like Dahmer with the glasses on than he does with them off. That's the only thing that I can think of.
I agree with that
Yeah,
because when he doesn't have them on, he does like the glasses really sell it.
Also,
Really sell the look.
since we're talking about inaccuracies of his look, his hair should have been more blonde. Like throughout the series, his hair in the series looks like he dyed it months ago and the dye's wearing out. Like his roots need to touch up. But all the pictures I've seen of Dahmer from this time, his hair just in general is much lighter tones. That's an easy fix too. What are you doing?
Dahmer is one of the people who looks different in every picture to me too. He looks different in every picture.
Nope.
We appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be back next week as we conclude Dahmer. Brian, hit the end button, please.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
Just want to remind everybody.